Barrett, President Clinton appears hundreds of times in the Epstein files. He's mentioned in multiple email correspondence between Epstein and his associates. There are several pictures of Clinton in these files with Epstein. There's one in a hot tub with someone who is redacted, another picture in a pool with Ghislaine Maxwell and another woman. We know Clinton took several flights on Epstein's private jet. And of course, there was the birthday book, and the former president's name appears in that. The former president has denied any wrongdoing, and none of those mentions implicate Clinton and Epstein's crimes. If you were in the room, what would you focus on? What would you ask the former president?
Yeah, I mean, this should be a very different deposition than the one yesterday, simply because, as you pointed out, former President Clinton actually had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. He knew him, and he certainly has been named, obviously not implicated in any crimes, but named repeatedly in the Epstein files. So if I was in the room asking questions, I would do what any good prosecutor would do. I would go to the documents. I would go to what we've seen in the Epstein files. I would go through as many documents as I had time where Bill Clinton's name was mentioned. I would ask about those. I would ask about the photographs. I would try to be methodical, filling in any gaps that we don't have from the documents. As we know, so many of these documents don't give a lot of context. So, you might see somebody's name, but it's unclear exactly how it fits into the big picture. I would use this as an opportunity to try to fill in those blanks, draw the lines, connect these things, and ask about other people that he may know about as well. So I think they have a great opportunity here to talk to somebody who should have a lot of information about this. We'll see whether the lawmakers are actually able to take that through thoughtful questioning.
Amy, of course, it's not the first time President Clinton has had to face questions from lawmakers. Given how he's maybe handled past testimony, how might he handle this one?
I mean, he's obviously going in and taking this very seriously. They were pushed into this, though, Anna. Let's not forget that. They did not want to testify. They pushed back for 7 months. When the Democrats on the committee flipped, they felt the need to, that's when they relented and said, OK, we're going to do this. But he has to come in here. He has to remain even-keeled, obviously. He can be a little hot-tempered. He can be a little loose-lipped. A lot of people think that he is the more undisciplined of the two lawyers in that relationship. And so I'm curious to see how he handles that, especially in these very heated moments. And they're going to get heated with the photographs and with the documents. So I'm curious to see how he handles all of that.
Of course, Jeff, as has been mentioned, President Clinton did not want to do this. He fought it. And then he took issue with the format of this being a private deposition. He wrote just earlier this month, quote, Chairman Comer says he wants cameras, but only behind closed doors. Who benefits from this arrangement? It's not Epstein's victims who deserve justice, not the public who deserve the truth. It serves only partisan interests. This is not fact-finding. It's pure politics. Does this appear to be pure politics?
Well, you can see the argument that the former president is making about that. I mean, in some ways, having it be public would give both sides an opportunity for the political theater that some of any hearing is going to have. It would give an opportunity for people to see how President Clinton is pushing back, and also to see how the questions are asked. I did think it was interesting that Chairman Comer said that video will be released afterwards, and I wonder if the former president knew that. It was also striking that Secretary Clinton said she's not going to come back, and she thought it should have been public. And now, they're going to release a transcript and maybe release video as well. So one wonders if the Clintons were informed about that, or if that's a new development. But either way, part of their strategy had been to say, OK, we don't want to do this, but if we're going to do it, let's do it publicly so that we can air all of this in front of everyone, and so that the people who are putting this hearing together can't come out and change the narrative.
And like you said, we will see that video. We heard from Comer, we heard from Garcia, the top Democrat and Republican, and vice versa there in terms of the order, that they will be putting this out as soon as possible, the video from the Hillary Clinton deposition. Amy, we did see some theatrics yesterday with Lauren Boebert, the congresswoman from Colorado, sending a picture during Hillary Clinton's deposition of her testifying before the committee to a Republican or conservative social media influencer who then posted it during the ongoing deposition. Do you see today becoming a political clown show, for lack of a better term?
I mean, I'm curious to see how the president himself reacts to that, to everything, if he comes out and hits the mics like his wife did, like Hillary Clinton did. But I think that they're very on guard. They know that this is a spectacle. This is a couple that has been targeted. They feel like they've been targeted by Republicans for decades. And so they know what they're walking into. I mean, this is not their first rodeo. And so I think that they're going to approach it as that. And what will be interesting is their response to it, how they can get ahead of it. Can they get ahead of it? Or will Republicans sort of dominate this narrative going forward?
Well, of course, Republicans and Democrats say that they want answers. They both have serious questions here. Barrett, Bill Clinton answered questions before lawmakers when he was president. Now he's answering questions under oath as a former president. Does this increase the chances that President Trump will be forced to follow suit?
It certainly sets a precedent that one can subpoena a former president and that person can be compelled to ask questions. It's sort of dangerous territory. Be careful what you ask for Republicans who may very much want to have Bill Clinton in the hot seat, but very much will not want President Trump to be in that same seat later on. It also really highlights the importance of Clinton's preparation for this deposition. He is going to be under oath. You can imagine Republicans being very concerned and very interested in making sure there's, no misstatements, nothing that he says that can be potentially used to, form the basis of any kind of perjury charge or something like that. So I think, it's important for him to be very cautious answering these questions, very careful, and certainly very well prepared, which I'm sure he is.
Ali, what's the likelihood that actually happens, that Republicans agree to subpoena President Trump? Does this Bill Clinton deposition set the stage for that to happen?
I think that it allows for the argument to happen. I think that it makes the Republicans on the committee look more partisan or hypocritical for not asking for the president. At the same time, I don't foresee a moment where they actually push for that. You have to remember, too, that in order to even get the discharge petition that ultimately spurred the Epstein Files Transparency Act to be voted on in unanimous fashion on the floor, you needed to get 4 Republicans to actually cross party lines and put their names on the signature line for that discharge petition. And those who did so, including Congressman Mace, including Congressman Thomas Massie and others, the ones who did so received a lot of pressure from the White House to pull their names off of the list and stop the discharge petition from going forward. Ultimately, we know that didn't happen, and we've seen the domino effect from there. But I've been talking about this, frankly, as 2 prongs of a congressional Epstein investigation. Of course, the Epstein Files Transparency Act was a brief congressional moment that, of course, spurred the document transparency, at least in part. We know DOJ has not been in full compliance, and there are questions about enforcement mechanisms there. But then on the other prong of it, it is really the Oversight Committee, which was always the Speaker's preferred path anyway. But now it's a question of how far will they go when it comes to subpoenas? And will they risk drawing the president's ire when, frankly, the story of Republicans this Congress has been one of ceding power that is literally Congress's on appropriations, on war powers, to a president that has enjoyed having those executive privileges? I just don't foresee a moment where that happens, but I think this is then a moment where a midterm message becomes important, because Democrats, as they talk about affordability, they are also talking about accountability, and accountability means majority power with gavel and subpoena power, and that's how this becomes a political midterm story as much as an accountability Epstein story.
And Jeff, President Trump has previously actually expressed some empathy for Bill Clinton being under scrutiny because of the Epstein files. He just said to NBC earlier this month, "It bothers me that somebody's going after Bill Clinton." What do you make of that and sort of the position President Trump is in right now as it relates to what we're seeing in the Oversight Committee in their investigation?
I think you can conclude that he has empathy for President Clinton in this case, in part because he doesn't want this to set a precedent for former presidents. You would think that would be at the top of his mind. But I think there are political risks for both sides in this today. There are certainly political risks for Republicans because it is keeping the news of Jeffrey Epstein in the headlines on a day, by the way, when President Trump is going to Texas and his people want him to talk about the economy. Instead, people are talking about Jeffrey Epstein. But there, of course, are also political risks for the Democrats. And I mean, President Clinton's history and bringing up issues related to Me Too again, that's not a good message for Democrats when they are also trying to focus on the weaknesses that they see in President Trump's record going into the midterms.
Jeff, thank you. Thank you, Amy and Ali Vitale. Of course, keep us posted from Chappaqua.